So a warm welcome to everybody joining us today. We are having our 19th webinar in the series, and we'll continue through 2026 with interesting webinars for all of you, usually on a bi-weekly basis, but sometimes we have them on a weekly basis. So we've got a lot of really good topics coming up this year. But we're going to start... So today's webinar, Standard Operating Procedures as Scientific Infrastructure for Scalable Participatory Breeding, will be presented by Almendra Cremaschi, who's a researcher working on participatory plant breeding, data governance, and open science. And she collaborates with the Alliance for Bioversity and CIAT on tricot trials. She's a researcher at CONICET and a professor at the National University of San Martin in Argentina. And today she'll be presenting the SOPs for on-farm tricot trials, explaining what the SOPs are, how they're structured, and why they matter. She'll conclude with a practical demonstration of SOP creation and operation in ClimMob, along with an overview of ongoing work and the next steps for the tricot SOPs. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. Almendra, you can share yours and begin your presentation.
Okay, great. You can see my presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Almendra Cremaschi, and as Rachel mentioned, I am part of the tricot team led by Cauê de Souza. Within the team, I'm responsible for the development of standard operating procedures, that is our topic, and data curation. And in this presentation, I will reflect on the role of SOPs as foundational scientific infrastructure for large-scale, decentralized, on-farm trials within the tricot approach. I will begin by introducing the rationale behind the SOPs and by defining and explaining their structure and content. Then I will discuss their importance across 4 domains: practical, methodological, communicational, and ethical. After that, I will show you how SOPs can be created and operationalized in ClimMob, and I will conclude with an overview of the current work in progress and the next steps. So why do SOPs matter? Tricot trials are grounded in real farming system, and that is their main value. They support situated facilitation, response to farmers' needs, and contribute to farmer empowerment, which has been already pointed out in previous webinars. However, these on-farm trials are conducted under highly heterogeneous conditions, with differences in plot history, climate, management practices, affecting both the crop performance and farmer perceptions. In this context, SOPs become an essential tool for capturing this diversity in a structured and analytically meaningful way. Without SOPs, the vulnerabilities of large, distributed on-farm networks, such as the 1,000 farms is trying to establish, quickly become evident. Small inconsistencies in question phrasing, timing, or enumerator interpretation can cascade into major analytical obstacles. Missing or ambiguous variables undermine automated data cleaning, slow survey harmonization, and jeopardize comparisons across environments. So what are SOPs? Oh, sorry, there is something automatic here. I don't know why. Okay. Okay. So broadly speaking, standard operating procedures, SOPs, can be understood as standardized methodological frameworks that specify what to observe, the traits, when to observe, data collection moments, and how to observe and record observations, both the measures and the methods and measurement scales, within the context of biodiversity based on farm trials. And there are 2 key things here. On the one hand, you can see how SOPs closely dialogue with crop ontologies, helping to define how traits are measured and recorded in a consistent way. And on the other hand, SOPs are not intended to dictate which traits breeders should prioritize or which decision they or you should make. They just define a minimum shared structure that ensures diversity and that diversity can be observed, compared, and interpreted consistently across trials. So, how do SOPs contribute to scalable participatory breeding? I will present 4 domains: practical, methodological, communicational, and ethical. Okay, from a practical perspective, SOPs reduce the effort and uncertainty involved in setting up and running trials. Once the minimum trial requirements, relevant traits, and data collection moments are clearly defined, teams can set up trials more quickly and consistently, allowing you to focus your efforts on facilitation, engagement, and learning rather than repeatedly redesigning protocols. From a methodological perspective, SOPs ensure procedural consistency in how data are generated, which in turn enable analytical comparability. Stabilizing variable definitions, measurement scales, and growth stage logics allows data from hundreds or thousands of farmer-managed plots to be interpreted together rather than fragmented into incompatible datasets. This consistency supports interpretability across crops, years, or analytical pipelines by making it possible to attribute observed differences in performance to biological, environmental, or management factors rather than to inconsistencies in implementation. SOPs deliver important communicational benefits too. They provide a shared language and reference point for breeders, extension officers, and farmers, making it easier to align expectations and explain what is being measured and why. Clear and harmonized procedures support the communication of trial narratives, contribute to the co-ownership of the processes, and help build horizontal relationships, therefore enabling researchers to interpret and compare results across environments and seasons. At the same time, SOPs also function as training and onboarding tools, preserving the institutional memory and continuity as teams, partners, or capacities change over time. Finally, SOPs also play a critical ethical role. They reduce the need for trial-by-trial ethical clearance while strengthening compliance and transparency because they embed informed consent procedures, data protection rules, and the handling of personally identifiable information at the protocol level. So this approach protects participants, builds trust across farmer networks, and supports responsible data sharing. A very concrete example of a excuse me. A very concrete example of the relevance of SOPs is the work of David Brown and colleagues. They analyzed data from 18 common bean tricot trials conducted across 4 countries in Central America, covering a wide range of environments, organizations, and farming contexts. What made this analysis possible was the fact that despite this heterogeneity, the trials shared a common structure. Farmers evaluated the same set of varieties using the tricot approach, and key traits were observed following comparable definitions and timings. Because of this, data synthesis methods could be applied, combining farmer rankings across trials to identify varietal performance patterns at a regional scale. As we can see in the maps and networks, SOPs ensure that farmer-generated rankings are comparable and that regional conclusions can be built. What do SOPs look like? What is their core structure? Well, despite context-specific variations across crops and regions, SOPs generally follow a common structure consisting of an introduction followed by 4 and sometimes 5 core components. The first component is the trial and household characterization that captures key contextual information, including farmer characteristics, plot conditions, and management practices. It provides the background necessary to interpret varietal performance under real farming conditions. The second component are the crop growth stage models, where traits are organized according to crop growth stages each associated with a defined window of days after planting. While the exact stages vary across crops, they typically include early establishment, capturing germination and initial vigor, vegetative stage, capturing canopy and growth characteristics, maturity, encompassing traits such as flowering, for example, harvest, capturing traits related to productivity, and post-harvest, capturing traits related to storage, quality, or usability. This structure ensures that observations are made at biologically meaningful moments and remain comparable across trials. The third component are the tricot questions, which we are all familiar with because they ask farmers to compare 3 varieties in their package using the tricot approach, which we all know. And the fourth essential component is the socioeconomic information that is collected separately using the Rural Household Multiple Indicator Survey, which allows varietal performance to be interpreted in relations to farmers' livelihoods, resources, and constraints rather than in isolation. Sometimes, for crops oriented toward human consumption, SOPs also include a consumer evaluation component, which focuses on consumption-related traits such as taste, aroma, and texture, which are particularly relevant for crops like tubers or leafy vegetables. How to read and how to understand an SOP? Well, there are 2 formats available for SOPs, a document format and a ClimMob version. On the left, you can see the document format. These SOPs will be soon available as part of the Tricot Approach book, which will be released and shared through the 1000 Farm community by Rachel. In this format, we will start with the introduction. I will zoom in a little bit so you can see it. It looks like I can't now. Let me see, just a minute. Well, there is an introduction that is on the top, and here it's like a little bit slow. I will leave it like that just in case. So we start with an introduction that explains what the trial is about, which crop and season it refers to, and what kind of data will be collected overall. Then we look at the trial design elements, which explains how the trial should be set up in the field. And then we check the data collection timing. We have a table that links the growth stages with days after planting, so we know exactly when each observation should take place. Then we have the variables where we can check how each variable is defined, which units or response types are used, and at which data collection moment it belongs. And finally, we have the tricot questions. On the right, we have the ClimMob format, which I will present later. So now I want to briefly introduce 2 closely related topics: cross-crop harmonization and interoperability. As a result of the SOP development and data correction process, we have created 2 complementary question sets. The first set is a core set of questions applicable across all crops, which should be included systematically. These core questions ensure a minimum level of consistency and comparability across trials, crops, and regions. The second set is a curated question library containing additional crop-specific questions that can be selected and added as needed, depending on the objectives of the trial and the biology of the crop. While new questions can always be created in order to align the trials to the target product profile, we strongly encourage teams to first review and use the existing question sets, because doing so facilitates the consistency across trials and simplifies data collection. Both sets will be also available as part of the book chapter. This brings me to the second point, that is interoperability. As I said, the SOPs goes hand in hand with the use of crop ontologies because they provide standardized, machine-readable definitions and unique identifiers for traits, measurements, and metadata. They help ensure that synonyms are mapped correctly, that variables use consistent units, and that digital tools like ClimMob can interpret the data unambiguously. When SOPs and crop ontologies are used together, they make data integration possible at scale. And this allows downstream systems, such as Genesis, to automatically align data sets coming from different crops, trials, and regions without relying on manual harmonization. For all these reasons, SOPs play a critical role in safeguarding the integrity of farmer-generated data. They enable large-scale synthesis and they ensure that the insights produced by tricot trials can meaningfully inform breeding decisions. In short, SOPs are what make tricot both participatory and rigorous. They are open to farmers' knowledge while firmly grounded in scientific standards. I will now show you how this works in ClimMob. I will play the video. Okay, so the first thing we can see here is that there are already a lot of protocols ready to use, covering a wide range of crops, maize, potato, rice, sorghum, and that there are even more than one protocol per crop in some cases, depending on the objectives of the trial and on agronomic conditions. Looking into the protocols, for example, in the case of bean, we have the structure that I presented before with a profile or an introduction, a participant registration form, and data collection moments. In the project profile, we have basic information about the project, like a short description, also the institutional setting and the geographical setting. Then the number of participants, which will be always more than 10, the technologies, and the project type. And here we can see how we have protocols available in different languages. We have so far English, French, Spanish, and we are working on a Swahili translation. If we move on to the participant registration form, we can see that we have everything preset and that we can see it in different languages, and that we can even change the main language of the project. I will show you that in a moment. You can switch it, for example, to Spanish and see the automatic translation there, or also French in this case. We have the question library on the very left, and you can see that you can use this template that has the different trial data collection moments preset with a set of defined and curated questions, as you can see here. As I was mentioning, we have different protocols for the same crop. I will demonstrate that with forages, for example. We have a protocol for tropics with a set of questions defined for this crop with basic crop stages. And we have also another protocol for forages for temperate regions with tailored data collection moments that adapt the protocol to the environment. Now, I will show you how you can use these protocols and operationalize this in your own work. I will log in my personal account, and as a user, the first thing I would do if I started a project is to set the local languages. I'm based in Argentina, so I make sure that I have Spanish and also English, and Spanish is my main language. If I want to add another one, I could there where I showed you. Then I go to all projects and I can add a new project. I will demonstrate it with a maize project here. So I just assign a name to it, a project ID, a short description. In Buenos Aires, that is my place, some keywords separated by a comma, then my institutional setting, my country, I said already it is Argentina, and then the number of participants, that is always more than 10, and then I say, well, I'm working on farm. My unit of analysis is a genotype because I'm experimenting with maize, and I want to make on-farm verification. And here I have templates ready to use. So I will choose a maize protocol in Spanish and also in English, and I create a project. And here is where the magi arrives, because I can see that most of the work is already done for me. I have the data collection moments defined and the participant registration form in Spanish and in English, and it's already prepared and curated. Also, the data collection moments are ready, so I just assign field agents and technologies. So let's see the data collection moments and how everything is ready to use and to implement in just a minute. I have here how the field agents will see. I have the tricot questions, as you can see. Everything is preset and curated, and this is the important thing. If I want to have this in a document because it's easier for me to communicate it, I can just download a form and create a project summary. I create it, I will download it. Okay, and when I open it, you will see that everything is ready in a Word document, easy to communicate and to work with if you want to print it or if you want to have it in another format. So the point of this is how protocols make the initial work easier. So I will close by briefly summarizing where we are now and where we are moving to. So far we have consolidated a harmonized database of traits, combining core questions and crop-specific traits. In parallel, we have developed SOPs for a growing number of Boulder and CGAR crops. The list you see on the right gives an overview of the crops covered so far, spanning cereals, legumes, roots, tubers. Looking ahead, the next steps are twofold. First, we will validate and publish the protocols that have already been produced, making them accessible for reuse by different teams and programs. And then we will expand this work to additional crops, particularly within PDFF and bold opportunity crops. The idea is not just to increase the number of protocols, but to continue strengthening a shared interoperable framework that supports both local experimentation and large-scale synthesis. So I will stop here and I'm happy to take questions and comments. And I want to tell you that if you feel that there is a particular protocol where I could be helpful, please feel free to reach me at this email and I will be very happy to work with you on it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Thank you very much, Almendra. That was very clear and extremely practical. So I think it's well appreciated by everyone here. Great. Thank you. Lots of claps and reactions. Fantastic. Okay, let's open the
Thank
floor.
you.
Let's
Thank you
open
to
the
my
floor.
teammates.
Yes, they're all here, I think, or most of them. Let's open the floor to questions. I see that we had one in the chat about the minimum number of sites and farmers, but that was answered by Kawe. So I think that's fine, and we can, unless Sahu wants to, sorry, Ipa wants to say more about that. Are there any other questions? Please raise your virtual hand or put your question in the chat. Don't be shy. Okay, I've got a question from Anita. Is there any experience with native potatoes in the SOPs? Almendra.
Oh, well, I think that maybe Kawe can answer that more, but we have been working on a potato SOP. I am not certain if native potatoes should imply different questions or particular crop-specific questions, but we have been working on an SOP that we can check. But I don't know, Kawe, is there an experience with native potatoes?
Yeah, we actually we are doing that with potato in Peru. So we are doing one of these high diversity zones in Peru, Cotacachi. and the farmers are there testing native potatoes in using the SOP. So the SOP is actually available on ClimMob in Spanish and English already, and we are aiming in French, and then we are going for Swahili. It's not that we are prioritizing the language. We are not prioritizing African languages just because I'm Brazilian, so Almendra is Spanish, is a Argentinian. So we know the language, and then we go for the language that we know, and then now we are asking support from our partners on the African languages because unfortunately I don't speak any of them.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Kaveh. So that's clear. Anita says, thank you. Any other questions or comments, or if you'd like to share your experience using SOPs, something you might be looking for in the new SOPs and you're not sure if it's there?
If there is no question, before we close, I just want to say that the goal of Almendra doing this seminar is to show to the ClimMob users the advantage of using SOP, like advantage in terms of you saving time and also you having the ability of repurposing your data and doing regional analysis, which is one of the big discussions that we are having under the scope of the CGR Breeding for Tomorrow. But the goal here is also to make an effort with the users to not be creating questions, random questions on ClimMob without first checking an SOP, because as Amanda said, and I reinforce that, it's much difficult to curate these questions and link them to databases. So thinking that we are always doing this as a process, and on-farm testing is one of the processes in this big machine, which is a breeding. So we want to reinforce that, and then if you don't see a protocol for your crop, instead of trying to solve the issue by yourself, try to contact Almendra, and then we will be happy to help you with that. Of course, we are a limited team, so we are, of course, giving priority to crops that are under the Breeding for Tomorrow scope, and also crops that are in these projects that we have with Crop Trust. But we are happy to offer, for example, one thing that will come up in the next couple of months is a generic SOP for each crop class. So you have an SOP for root crops, and you have one for leaf vegetable crops. So then if you don't find your SOP, you can still use one of the existing ones, avoiding issues of creating random questions that sometimes is very difficult later for you to analyze and explore deep in your results. Yes, that's my intervention. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you, Kelly. I put Almendra's email again into the chat, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So 10 more seconds for any questions or comments from the audience. No? Okay. It was all very clear. And of course, this recorded webinar will be available on the Community of Practice website, which again is at the following URL, community.thousandfarms.net. And please, if you haven't signed up to be a member, please do, so we can be in touch with you and you can be in touch with other colleagues working on tricot. So it's just for me to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us today. And thank you to Almendra for the really interesting and fascinating practical presentation. And we look forward to hearing more about the developments with the SOPs in the future. So thank you
Rachel.
again.
Thanks, everybody.